rare and balanced view on politics in today's world. Based on facts, born of rationality, common sense, and logic, providing context on today's events. This is American Perspective with Rick Thomas.
Hello, everyone, and welcome to American Perspective. I am your host, Rick. You know, question came in from 3 Chevy right before I got on the air. If there's a whiskey that's been hanging around for 20 years plus, does it go bad? And honestly, I think as long as it's sealed, meaning that you've put the cork back in the bottle, or, you know, the top on the bottle, I honestly don't think it does. I don't think there is a shelf life with alcohol like that, mainly just because of the fact that as long as it's been closed up, I don't think there's an issue, mostly because most of your whiskeys are anywhere from 40 to 60% alcohol, generally speaking. And so realistically, I honestly, I don't think so, because anything that would get inside it would die. Now, whether or not that cap actually allows the alcohol to evaporate out of it, that's another question. But again, as long as the cork is in it, I don't think so. I've never really, I mean, I'll be honest with you. We have some alcohol here, and not just whiskey, but I'm talking like rum and vodka and tequila and stuff like that I've had for as long as my wife and I have been married, and that we're approaching 30 years, and we still drink out of it. So, and no one's gotten sick. Well, I mean, other than, you know, being alcohol sick. You know, the usual stuff. So honestly, I don't think so. I don't think there is a like an age limit or whatever on the thing. So yeah, I just, again, I've never really thought of it. I've never really thought of it having any kind of a shelf life or date on it. I think as long as it's closed, as long as the bottle is closed properly with like the cork or whatever. Yeah, I don't think so. So, I mean, that would be a question that I would probably have to search the interwebs for, in which case there's a question for Saturday. Speaking of Saturday and tonight, of course, is Pet of the Week. Unfortunately, I don't have one. So, yeah. Anyway, if you want to submit your Pet of the Week, yeah, if you want to submit your Pet of the Week, all you need to do is send it off to fans, FANS, at AmericanPerspective.online. Same thing goes for the question of the week, which is Saturday night's segment, which is also sending into fans at AmericanPerspective.online. Reminder, Amy, send in Pet of the Week. There you go. All right. She's got some nice pups, or she's got a nice pup or two that she would love to show off, and she keeps forgetting. Anyway, apparently she's like sending photos, which, by the way, I mean, there is a limit. Generally speaking, if you go above something like 30 meg or something like that. But anyway, yeah, if you try to email a very large file, it will tend to bounce on you and say, no, you can't do that. So the best way to send like large files or videos or stuff like that is to use one of the wonderful platforms like Google Drive or Box or Dropbox or something like that it has a free tier. Put it up there and then send it off, or send me a link, and then I can download them. So, so anyway, there you go. All right, let's go ahead and get tonight started off. Tonight's, is one of our favorites. Is she in the chat? Is she in the chat yet? I have not seen her. Yeah, tonight's Pledge of Allegiance is going to be done by one of our favorite groups. That group, of course, is Coco, Cam, and Sean. Coco, Cam, and Sean are up. Now, for those of you that aren't regular listeners to the program and you haven't really caught this yet, Sean is normally a nonverbal autistic gentleman. And he gets really excited when the Pledge of Allegiance is played, or is recited, I should say. And so because of that, you will hear in this Pledge of Allegiance, you will hear him start the pledge. You will hear him drop into his normal nonverbal self, and then you'll hear him come back at the end. That is, he is just fantastic. He is one of the Whiskey Warrior P1 favorites when it comes to the Pledge of Allegiance. So if you are of mind, please stand. Remove your hats if you're wearing one, like me. Place your hand over your hearts and follow along with Coco, Cam, and of course Sean as they recite the Pledge of Allegiance.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
And thank you, Coco, Cam, and Sean, for that wonderful rendition of the Pledge of Allegiance. If you would like to hear your rendition of the pledge played here on the program, all you need to do is record yourself performing or reciting the pledge in your style. Then take that audio file, video file, whatever kind of file, attach it to an email, and send it off to me. Surprise, surprise. Send it to fans, F-A-N-S, at AmericanPerspective.online. That's fans at AmericanPerspective.online. You can send it in to me and become number 17 on the list for the rotation order for it. And, yeah, so there you go. All right, let's talk about what I am drinking. Bonnie is going to kill me, but the only reason why she's going to kill me is because she doesn't really like this that much. I'm finishing off the Bullet Bourbon. Yes, that is correct. I am finishing it. I decided to dump whatever was left in the bottle. There's still a little sip down there, of course, that I'll probably have to grab. But yeah, this is a little bit deeper than what I normally go in terms of the depth of the liquid in the glass. But there it is in the True Grit Roots Network, red, white, and blue glass with, of course, the requisite stones, because it takes stones to drink with whiskey. And, yeah, well, yeah. So, anyway. Yep, there we go. That's the requisite first sip out of the glass. So there you go. Yeah, I know, Bonnie, I know. Anyway, let's talk about True Grit Roots Network really quick. TGRN.net. TGRN.net is basically the place to go on the web to find the Walter Trout Blues Rock Radio and, of course, the Dallas Moore Outlaw Radio. If you want to just listen to it right out of the browser, you can click on one of the two. You can see them right there. You can click on one of the two widgets and listen right through your browser. Or if you really want to, you can download the apps from the app stores, whether it's the iOS App Store or, of course, Google Play Store. You can go and grab the apps. They are separate apps, one for each channel. The Walter Trout Blues Rock Radio app, as well as the Dallas Moore Outlaw Radio app, and you can grab both of them if you want to listen to both of them. But I encourage you to give us a try. Give one of or both of those stations a try and just take a listen and see what we're up to. Also, too, last week I announced that we have launched the shop. That's right, the True Grit Roots Network shop. And so if you are or become a fan of TGRN or Dallas Moore Outlaw Radio or Walter Trout Blues Rock Radio, go and check out our store. You can get to it by clicking a link at tgrn.net, or if you just want to go to the store directly, go to shop.tgrn.net. That's shop.tgrn.net. And anyway, I'll get to that. But they have television, or God, you threw me off, damn it. Here we go. There's the requisite whiskey train off the tracks. You threw me off. All right. So, TGRN has t-shirts, sweatshirts, and so on and so forth. Hats as well. We've got some hats down there with the logos, and you can go and check them out at shop.tgrn.net. That's shop.tgrn.net, and get your logo gear and show the support. So there you go. Go to shop.tgrn.net to check out our store, and go to tgrn.net directly, and you can listen to TGRN's channels, either the Dallas Moore Outlaw Radio channel or the Walter Trout Blues Rock Radio channel. And you can go to there, tgrn.net. TGRN stands for True Grit Roots Network. We are based out of Austin, Texas. Fantastic music that we play. 24/7, 365. And by the way, hey, Landon, who's a good boy? Who's a good boy, Landon? You are. That's right, Landon. You're a good boy. All right, there we go. Oh, anyway. All right, let's go ahead and get this kicked off, get these things going. So, it's kind of interesting that we have some old Democrat folks that are now starting to sort of wake up and realize that their hard left turn that they took really isn't the best thing to do. And one of them, there was a gentleman, he's a Democrat representative, I think. I can't remember his name, but he was on a show somewhere, and they were talking about, the whole men and women's sports things. And he basically said, well, I'm going to have to change my name and change my address and my phone number, but men really shouldn't be in women's sports. And I think that's indicative of what a lot of the Democrats are realizing, that their hard left turn that they did over the course of the last 5, 6, 7, 8 years has not really gained them much of anything. Hasn't really gotten them anywhere. And in fact, even past administration folks are starting to come out and talk about the things that are going correct in the Trump administration. Because let's face it, if you're an American, if you follow America, if you understand America's principles and values, you need to realize that Trump embodies those principles and values in his policies. Not necessarily the man himself, okay? You can have a problem with somebody in terms of they themselves personally, but in terms of Donald Trump's policies and his direction for the country, he is on. He is right on, okay? And so when you have people like Tom Homan, for an example, talking about how sanctuary cities are a problem and that they need to end their sanctuary city policies, and that the consequences of sanctuary city policies preventing immigration and customs enforcement from accessing local jails, that he is correct. Well, that's just another angle that shows that the Democrat Party, the party itself, needs to realize and wake up. Hey, you guys are on the wrong side on this thing. And even though the leftist lunatic moron nut jobs that are all on social media who are all saying that the right is on the wrong side, meaning the conservatives are on the wrong side of all of this, they are actually wrong. They just don't know it yet. So anyway, former Obama administration official John Sandweg was on the Tuesday show News Nation Now, and he basically was saying that, hey, Tom Homan is right. Sandweg served as the acting ICE director under Barack Obama, and he acknowledged that such restrictions push ICE into neighborhoods to locate criminal targets, resulting in increasing collateral arrests of illegal aliens who may not be the primary focus of law enforcement actions. And Sandweg's comments, I should say, came after host Connell McShane of the program played a clip of border czar Tom Homan, who explained the operational challenges that ICE faces when local jurisdictions refuse to cooperate with federal immigration authorities. Folks, let's just put it this way. And Homan, this is what Homan said. Homan said, when they force us into the neighborhood to find that bad guy, many times we find others that aren't a criminal target, but are in the U.S. illegally. We're not walking away from them. Yeah, no kidding. Sandweg said, I don't disagree with Tom on this one. When you restrict ICE from getting into the jail, that does force the agency to go out in the street looking for these guys. So, in essence, what this gentleman is saying is he's basically saying, hey, look, local police who pick these guys up, these criminals up on a regular basis and put them in their local county jails, if they refuse to pass them on to ICE or pass the information on to ICE, then release them later, it's basically setting up ICE to have to go into neighborhoods and cause the very things that the communist socialist mayor Karen Bass was complaining about in terms of all of this. So, in other words, Karen Bass and any other mayor or governor of sanctuary states and cities are basically exacerbating the problem by literally not doing their sworn duty and enforcing the law. That's essentially what this comes down to. Now, if these people who complain about these ICE raids, oh my gosh, they're going into Home Depots and they're raiding Home Depots and they're raiding all these other places. They're going into parks, like Karen Bass talked about. They're going into parks and they're going after these people. Well, if you don't want those people to do that, if you don't want to see ICE go in and do this, then frickin' help them out. Do your damn job. Do your damn job. And freaking pick those people up, call ICE, get them out of your city, and everything else. Well, yeah. A little bit farther on, Sandweg was talking about a specific case involving an illegal alien who has been arrested 4 times. And had a final deportation order. According to Sandweg, this particular individual that he was talking about was already known to ICE, but was not actively being pursued due to the changes in enforcement policies. Sandweg said, look, this guy was arrested 4 times and been ordered deported. He was on ICE's radar screen, right? But we weren't out there looking for him because the administration had put ICE under so much pressure to round up larger numbers and pushing them out on these work sites and these farm fields. That's just not where you find these guys. Sandwig suggested that a return to more precise enforcement operations, such as targeting known criminal aliens, would improve public safety. Well, you want to know what else would really improve public safety? Is if these people would actually get picked up for their crimes, held in jail, and then handed over. That's what would improve public safety. So, yeah. Sandwing concluded his statement by saying, look, what I'm hearing Tom say, though, is we're going to get back to some of those more targeted operations in New York City, and I think that's good. We're all a little safer when ICE is focused on these bad guys first. Yeah. So, maybe if the local law enforcement would actually, enforce the law and do their sworn duty, that maybe we could get things done a lot easier, a lot less messy, and a lot less spectacular, let's say. Well, as far as illegal aliens are concerned, remember, all of the left keeps saying, especially when Congress decided to cut federal spending in Medicaid and Medicare programs and things like that, federally funded benefit programs, trying, of course, to bring things back to all of this, bring things back under control in terms of all the spending. Well, you remember all those states and all those Democrats that basically were like, and illegal immigrants or aliens can't be on these programs. They're not allowed. They don't qualify. Really? Well, if you're, telling me on one hand that, hey, people, you don't qualify, or we don't qualify for this, or a certain group of people doesn't qualify for this, then why in the hell are you suing to keep the funding going? Could it be maybe because you don't care about the people, that you're maybe trying to use it for something else? Anyway, here in Townhall, California joins 19 other states along with the District of Columbia. They all filed a lawsuit on Monday against the Trump administration for a recent rule that is barring illegal immigrants, read aliens, from certain federally funded public benefit programs. The suit claimed the new rule was, quote, cruel, and signaled an abrupt reversal of almost 3 decades of policy. Well, yeah, 3 decades of policy under Democrat administrations. Anyway, since 1997, states have been allowed to extend their programs to illegal immigrants and their families. Oh, wait a minute. I thought they weren't getting it. I thought those programs were not going to illegal aliens. Really? That the illegal aliens were not a suck on our system of government, that they didn't qualify. So there's no cuts that can be made. Well, the big beautiful bill passes, and guess what? That's exactly what the Democrats are now admitting to, because they're now suing to try and keep that money flowing. Really? Oh, yeah. California Attorney General Rob Bonita said that reversing the law revokes essential benefits. Yeah. His office also stated that requiring programs to expend resources to implement systems and train staff to verify citizenship or immigration status will impose a time and resource burden on programs already struggling to operate on narrow financial margins. Really? So you're sitting here now telling us that, you're giving the money, you've admitted you're giving the money out to illegal aliens and causing this fraud, waste, and abuse, which is that's exactly what this is waste and abuse for sure, and fraud as well, because they're not qualified according to you guys. And so now you're sitting here telling me and saying all of this, that, yeah, this is going to be a problem. Really? it's going to be a problem. Yeah. So according to the Los Angeles Times, one of the programs facing restrictions includes a program called Head Start, which provides almost 1 million infants in low-income households with child care, nutrition, and health assistance. Okay, great. A White House spokeswoman said in a statement on Monday that President Trump was elected based on his promise to put Americans first. And that is exactly what this administration is committed to doing. In other words, our tax money should go to, wait for it, Americans. Yeah. Uh-huh. Folks, this is the whole point. Our tax money should be spent on Americans, not on illegal aliens that are here or other folks that are here that are not part of the American citizenship. They do not need these funds. If you want to become an American citizen and be able to take part in all these funds, then go around the legal way. Get it taken care of. Get the crap taken care of. You know, when I went over to China, China basically had to have my company fill out documentation stating that if I were to end up staying in China, that I would be able to support myself, that I would not become a ward of the government. And that is exactly what we realistically need here. End of story. I'm sorry. So, yeah. These people, these leftists, keep talking about all this crap, and they're saying, oh, no, this isn't happening, but it's good that it is. Yeah, actually, it is happening. It is happening. Well, one good thing that's happening, by the way, one good thing that's happening with all of these ICE deportations and everything else is the fact that, well, our pressure on Americans' emergency rooms due to illegal aliens who are believing that they might be arrested and deported if they use emergency services are alleviating pressure. That's right. They're alleviating pressure. So illegal aliens are well known to abuse emergency services for non-emergencies. They're not paying, and they're leaving the American people to go ahead and pay for it. However, the Los Angeles County Department of Health Services has confirmed to the Federalist, where I'm getting this from, that recent ICE activity in California is stopping many illegals from seeking emergency services as well as scheduled appointments. So these people who come here and they're essentially, once again, they're not supposed to necessarily be using these services, and they're doing it anyway, and they're leaving. You can't go after them for any kind of money because they're not here legally or anything else. And yeah, here we go. Once again, yeah. So the LACDHS, which again is Los Angeles County Department of Health Services, told the Federalist, quote, "We can confirm that our health system has in fact seen a decline in both emergency room visits and in rates of patients showing up to scheduled health appointments." The department also claimed that the fear caused by the aggressive approach of the ICE raids has left many in the LA County communities fearing for their safety, regardless of immigration status. The patients we serve are expressing fear and anxiety. Okay. Not that I'm, necessarily feeling bad about this, because I'm not. If you're here illegally, you shouldn't be getting these kinds of services. Go home and get your services. I mean, shoot, a lot of people have been talking about how the fact that, sometimes you can get better health care by heading off to Canada or heading to Mexico. Okay. You want to get your health care, affordable health care, and you can't afford it here in America? Go. What are you doing here in the first place if you're here illegally? This is just, I mean, it sounds a bit callous, I'll admit, but the fact of the matter is you guys need to leave. You need to go. You go home. Go back to your countries. You don't need to be here. And if you are illegal, you should. You should be anxious. You should take the CBP Home app approach. Get your free flight home along with $1,000 in your pocket. That's what you should do. Yeah. Anyway. So yeah, this is a good thing. And by the way, I don't know if anybody caught this on X. I know I did because I'm a follower of his. But James Woods was saying that he took a trip to Las Vegas to go because he's an avid poker player. He loves playing in the World Series of Poker. It's beside the point, but just so you understand why he was going there. And he was saying that when he came back from Las Vegas, the drop in traffic in LA has actually been noticeable to him due to the fact that the illegal aliens who have been running around and other folks who are wondering if their immigration status is questionable or not has actually dropped. So that has caused traffic to actually drop in the cities. And I can guarantee, or in the city of LA anyway, but I can guarantee you this, I know that traffic is bad. And also, too, keep in mind, if you're here illegally and you can't speak English, read, write, or understand, you know, the English language being written and read, and you cause all kinds of problems. In fact, there's an account on Facebook that is I guess a trucking account, a person who does trucking, and they constantly post photos of all of these trucks that have been parked ever since the Trump administration put in a executive order and put in the policy with regards to reading and speaking English. And reportedly, according to this account, when a truck pulls up to a way station or something along those lines, they're actually having the drivers read things like Cat in the Hat in order to determine and establish whether or not the driver can actually read or speak English. Now, it's not as though this is a, new policy. In order to get your CDL license in America, you are required to be able to read and speak English. Gee, I wonder why every single one of our traffic signs is in English. We don't do the multilingual thing like Canada does, or any of these other international locations. You have to read or speak the language in order to be able to drive a commercial vehicle here in the United States. That language is English. So all of this is the result of a administration that is actually starting to withhold the law, or uphold the law, I should say. Well, regardless of what the leftists keep yelling about, Americans don't like the idea of just giving blanket amnesty to all these illegals that are running in here. And Americans firmly believe and back Trump's deportation agenda. So there was a poll put out. This story comes from Breitbart. There was a poll put out by the Tea Party Patriots Action. It was commissioned from McLaughlin and Associates, exclusively shared with Breitbart News. And this poll found that 77% of likely American voters believe it's neither fair nor right, not right as in right versus left, but right as in correct, for the federal government to give an amnesty to a particular subset of illegal aliens, including 55% of those who say they strongly believe amnesty is unfair. So over 50% of the people who are likely American voters who responded to this poll basically said that, yeah, you absolutely shouldn't be giving anything kind of toward amnesty. Not at all. So, at the same time, meanwhile, 13% of likely registered voters disagreed that amnesty is unfair, and about 11% said that they were unsure. Now, a near consensus of Republicans, 86%, agreed that amnesty for illegal aliens is unfair to legal immigrants, as well as 71% of swing voters. That's right. Oh, and hey, by the way, 71% of Democrats also feel that amnesty for illegal aliens is unfair to those legal immigrants who have come here. Yeah, exactly. So you seriously wonder why the Democrat Party is so out of touch with the American public when it comes to illegal aliens. Yeah. Now, the poll continues and finds that continuing support for Trump's deportation agenda that subjects all illegal aliens to deportation, not just those who have been convicted or accused of crime. About 56% of likely voters agreed that anyone or everyone who has entered the country illegally, regardless of what additional crimes they may or may not have committed while in America, and regardless of their employment status, should be deported. That's over half of the respondents. 56% said that. 34% disagreed with that statement. Now, in terms of breaking it down by voting group, 79% supported deporting all illegal aliens, as well as a majority, 52% of swing voters. Gee, you wonder why. Democrats, seriously, you wonder why you lost? You're wondering why Kamala Harris lost? I mean, other than the fact that she is a babbling moron. But beyond that, you wonder why you lost? This was your kitchen table issue. This and the economy. These two were the top two in everybody's mindset when they went to the polls back in November. And as of right now, Trump is winning on the illegal immigration front. Or I should say illegal alien front. Trump is winning on this issue. This is an 80-20 issue. And the fact that the economy hasn't gone completely in the toilet like all of you Democrat morons keep sitting here saying, oh, it's going to, we're waiting, anytime now. Yeah, well, guess what? It hasn't happened yet. And at least right now, it doesn't look like it's going to. It looks like things are going to pretty much at this point kind of stay on an even keel for the time being, which is perfectly fine to most people. I mean, considering the last 4 years, we had crap go all the way up to a massive, whopping 9% inflation, and all new jobs go to foreign workers, where working jobs or workers today are now 100%, for the most part, of the new jobs that have been placed are going to American workers. Yeah. So, yeah. Anyway, Donald Trump recognized that, and he made that into his agenda. That's exactly why things have been going the way they've been going. This is exactly why the Democrat Party's approval rating has been dropping into the toilet. And this is exactly why no one should ever vote for a Democrat ever again. Period. They are out of touch with the American populace. They are completely out of touch with what Americans value and the principles that Americans have. See, all they want to do is create government to be your mommy or your daddy and to have you suckling off the teat of government for everything. Well, what they don't seem to understand is when that happens, what ends up with is you end up becoming not a human being anymore for these people, but rather you become a commodity, and they don't even care about you anymore. They only care about what you can do for them. And that's all they're interested in. That's all the Democrat Party has been interested in. That's part of the reason why in this last election, Donald Trump was able to garner more of the black vote, more of the Hispanic vote than ever before. Because of the fact that they, meaning the Democrats, lost their actual compassion and caring for the American people. They walked away from it. And that's why they're suffering so badly in the polls right now. Until that thought process in their heads changes, which it never will, because they've been that way ever since their inception. If you look back in history, they're the ones that came up with the KKK. They're the ones that caused the country to drop into a civil war. They're the ones that wanted to hang on to slavery and hang on to women not voting and hang on to all of the things that progressive, that they call themselves progressive, that they claim they're the ones that did. Those are all Republicans that did it. That's what it is. All right. Let me get to... All right. Yeah, let's talk about this. I haven't talked about this in a little while. So, here is Rumble Premium. This sponsorship is from Rumble, one that is incredibly important to the survival of the company. When Rumble first started in 2013, they built the platform for the small creator, like myself. They didn't censor or have biases. They were fair, treated all creators equally. No one thought platforms would censor political conversation or censor political opinions, or any opinion, I should say, on COVID, but they did. Facebook itself admitted that they fell to pressure from the Biden-Harris administration. Rumble did not. They held the line. They are attacked daily for giving us a voice to talk to you. They are attacked in corporate media by governments like France. Brand advertisers refuse to work with them. Corporate America is fighting to remove speech, factual speech, like what you find on this program. Rumble is fighting to keep it. Rumble won't survive with brand advertisers as they don't get very much traction in that space. Watching our show on Rumble is the most that they can ask from you. But if you really believe in this fight, and if you have the means, one major way you can help Rumble survive is by joining Rumble Premium. Join the community that believes in the First Amendment and believes in our human right to free speech. Rumble is offering $10 off with the promo code STUDIO when you purchase an annual subscription. Go to rumble.com/premium. For those of you that don't know, that / is the question mark key on your keyboard. Go to rumble.com/premium and use promo code STUDIO to get $10 off when you purchase an annual subscription. Like I said, if you have the means and believe in the cause, now is the time to join Rumble Premium. If you don't have the means, that's okay. We are just happy if you watch us on Rumble. All right. Well, moving on to Obamagate. So I was listening to Mark Levin earlier today, and he addressed a little bit of this. Let's go ahead and take a listen to Mark Levin. It's about a 3-minute long audio clip, but it's really important for you to understand and to listen and understand this is coming from a guy that used to work in the Reagan administration and was a lawyer in the Reagan administration. So take a listen to this.
The issue, when it comes down to Obama and what he and members of his cabinet did to President Trump and others, was there was an effort to undermine his election and then undermine his presidency. I mean, I'm watching TV, I'm listening to the legal analysts who say a lot of this information we already knew. That's not the point. A lot of this information we already knew. Here it is in black and white from the government, because the Republicans, the Trump administration now run the government and these agencies. And so the question is whether any crimes were committed. Now, you don't need to know definitively if crimes were committed before an investigation. But if you're concerned about what took place in a significant way, that it could have undermined an election and undermined a presidency, it seems to me there's precedent for an investigation. We just went through one. And that was phony. It was a fraud. It was a fake involving Donald Trump on January 6th. Here, the instrumentalities of the government were used against Donald Trump. And Barack Obama's name now comes up more than once. The point is he orchestrated it, just as I suggested he did. Jesus, what is it? Over 8 years ago now, Rich, I guess? 8.5 years ago. The idea that, as I said then, that Obama didn't know what was going on right under his nose, and in one or more meetings that he held in the Oval Office, is preposterous. Congress has every right to subpoena him and question him as a private citizen. They had the January 6th committee. And now they can have a special committee or just their usual committees of oversight. They appointed a special counsel, aka prosecutor, to pursue Trump in the middle of an election. Obama can't run again. He's not running again. So to me, the argument that he should be investigated is a very strong one. The downside is a very weak one, including the argument that immunity, the Supreme Court ruled, for a president doing his official duties is not subject to charges and so forth. The issue there is, and they made it clear in the opinion, but during the course of the official duties, if it is believed that they committed a crime, then that's prosecutable. But we're not at that point, are we? The point we're at is whether we launch, or they launch, a criminal investigation, which they should. And it is really precious to hear people now, particularly on the left and in the media, saying, we already knew most of this, right, Mr. Producer? Well, they already knew most of it. They knew most of it because they printed most of it, because they were collaborators. They aided and abetted. They used their news organizations to propound what was given to them by the Obama regime. That's how I figured it out.
So, there you go. And I agree with Mark Levin. Very smart guy. But I agree with Mark Levin. I agree we need a criminal investigation. We need a criminal investigation into whether or not Obama actually committed crimes during his time in office. Well, that has now somewhat been answered. So here, this is in Townhall. Here is a listen to, apparently Tulsi Gabbard was at the White House press meeting today. And let's take a listen to what Tulsi has to say on this.
Any of this new information implicates former President Obama in criminal behavior?
We have referred and will continue to refer all of these documents to the Department of Justice and the FBI to investigate the criminal implications of this.
For even former
The
President
evidence,
Obama?
correct. The evidence that we have found and that we have released directly point to President Obama leading the manufacturing of this intelligence assessment. There are multiple pieces of evidence and intelligence that confirm that fact.
So she confirmed, Tulsi Gabbard confirmed that the administration has referred Barack Obama over for criminal investigation. Now, when asked if Tulsi Gabbard believed that Obama committed treason, she said that's a question for Attorney General Pam Bondi, which is exactly what Mark Levin just said. Just exactly what he said. Well, now we have it confirmed. Here, from the Office of Public Affairs, Justice Department, and this just came out, by the way, Justice Department announces formation of strike force to assess the evidence publicized by the ODNI. Today, the Department of Justice announced the formation of a strike force to assess the evidence publicized by Director of National Intelligence Tulsi Gabbard and investigate potential next legal steps, which might stem from DNI Gabbard's disclosures. This department takes alleged weaponization of the intelligence community with the utmost seriousness. Upon the formation of the strike force, Attorney General Pamela Bondi stated, "The Department of Justice is proud to work with my friend, Director Gabbard, and we are grateful for her partnership in delivering accountability for the American people. We will investigate these troubling disclosures fully, leave no stone unturned to deliver justice." So there we go. They essentially have opened up the investigation. But I'll be honest with you, the investigation really needs to not just stop at people like Brennan Comey. I can't think of the guy's name. There's two Jameses. There's James Comey and James Clapper. There we go. That's the other one. So, Obama, Comey, Clapper, Clinton, all of them, they don't need to stop. They shouldn't just stop right there. They need to actually investigate even further. For an example, there was a private corporation that has now been indicated or implicated as a part of having a central role in the whole Obamagate/Russiagate hoax. Here in the Federalist, new DNI docs reveal Washington Post's central role in Russiagate. Oh, sorry. My bad. Let me go back. Here we go. So, candid assessments were immediately overturned. The narrative was flipped, claiming that Russia had interfered to help Trump win. So they created all of this stuff. And now newly released documents have pointed to the fact that there is potential that the Washington Post's dishonesty, because they were the recipients of two separate leaks to the Post, suggesting that there were two separate articles. They were, in fact, the same story, heavily rewritten after publication, according to the Federalist piece. The original version, which merely claimed that Russia had attempted to interfere, was already a serious departure from the previous day's draft presidential daily brief. But that version wasn't strong enough for the deep state officials, feeding a person by the name of Nakashima the story. Within hours, that version mysteriously vanished. In its place appeared a completely rewritten piece, one that boldly claimed to know the outcome of an assessment that had only just been ordered. Gone were the hedged references of attempted interference. The rewrite now flatly declared that Russia intervened in the 2016 election to help Donald Trump win the presidency. This was a wholesale transformation of a tentative report into a weaponized political narrative that Trump owed his presidency to Russian President Vladimir Putin. So this rewrite appeared under the exact same Universal Resource Locator, or URL, as the original article. There was no public acknowledgement, correction, or editor's note about that change. Which, by the way, that is a massive change that definitely should have had an editor's note at the minimum. The original headline stated, Obama orders review of Russian hacking during presidential campaign, and that remains visible in the URL to this day. But the title was now replaced by a far more dramatic and loaded headline. Secret CIA assessment says Russia was trying to help Trump win the White House. The rewritten article declared that it was now, quote, quite clear, end quote, that electing Trump was Russia's goal, according to the officials, who spoke on the condition of anonymity to discuss intelligence matters, according to that piece, but directly contradicted the previous day's draft presidential daily brief, which stated that any Russian data leaks were probably intended to cause psychological effects, such as undermining the credibility of the election process and candidates, not to help Trump. Yeah. The PDB assessment wasn't merely cautious. It reflected the intelligence community's actual position, consistent with the obvious political context in which everyone, including the Russians, expected Hillary Clinton to win. Nakashima's rewritten article wasn't just a dramatic pivot, it was a blatant rewrite of reality and a deliberate attempt to manufacture a new narrative in the service of a political agenda. Folks, we all know that even if the government were to kick out, and I'm going to leave the picture of Obama up here, even if the government were to kick out something, it has to use the mainstream media in order for its distribution. This particular situation and the credibility, the integrity of what is supposed to be I think they call it the fourth wall against government in particular, but what is supposed to be a free press, a watchdog, if you will, over government malfeasance and misfeasance, entirely broke down in this particular situation. Now, whether or not anything criminal had been done is a question for lawyers and investigators and so on and so forth. But the fact of the matter is, this is part of an indication and a demonstration as to the length the mainstream media was going to back in 2016, 2017, all the way up until now to, quote unquote, get Trump. They were on this from the beginning. They were interested in doing this from the beginning because they believed falsely that Donald Trump was the Antichrist, was going to destroy America, become totalitarian, etc., etc. And they still perpetuate that idea today. They still perpetuate that idea today. Now, keep in mind, folks, this is just the end of Obama's term. We haven't even begun to look further and deeper into the 8 years of Obama and the Obama administration. Folks, there are so many scandals and so many screwed up opportunities or operations. There's Uranium One, Benghazi, Clinton's emails, Fast and Furious. There is all kinds of things that need to be opened into, investigated. Whether or not actual criminal charges come out of them is sort of beyond the point at this point. I mean, this one in particular, because it happens to deal with potential direct seditious conspiracy, I think this one, out of all of them, needs to be focused on, because this one was a direct attempt to undermine the American people and their choice for president. This was something that was being done specifically not just to the Trump White House, but to the American people themselves, to our republic, to our constitutional republic. This one, above all else, definitely needs investigation. And if that investigation results in criminal activity being uncovered, then by all means, it has to be righted. It has to be corrected. It has to be punished. These people have to understand that this kind of shenanigans, this kind of chicanery, is not tolerated here in the United States. That, as they are so often talked about when it comes to President Donald Trump, no one is above the law. And that principle, that value that is fairly uniquely American, by the way, because even before, when the king was actually considered back in the day above the law, because the king made the law. The king created everything. And so as far as that went, the king was actually above reproach. You couldn't question a king. You couldn't question even the prince, because they were royalty. They couldn't be questioned in any of their decisions or anything else. And this kind of stuff needs to be considered and definitely punished if there is any kind of criminal activity that is developed out of this. Now, toward that end, and checking into the earlier parts of the Obama administration, this report came out. Senate Republicans are reopening the Clinton email probe. Well, there was something that was actually found out about the Comey FBI investigation. You recall that Comey FBI announcement at the very end of the quote-unquote investigation of the 33,000 emails, the server, the private server that she kept, the bleach bit, the hammer being taken to all of the Blackberries, and all of these other things that were going on. And then all of a sudden, at the very end there, FBI Director Comey says, yeah, we don't think that there's a attorney general that would bother to pick this up, so we're just not going to charge her with anything, even though there is a potential for criminal charges to be brought. You remember that press conference that he had where he said that? Well, it turns out, according to this report that has caused the Senate Republicans to reopen this, there were several thumb drives in the FBI's possession that were never analyzed. A detailed report showing that the FBI came up with a laughable reason not to do it. That the FBI came up with a laughable reason not to look at these thumb drives. So Matt Taibbi noted as a part of a 35-page annex to the Justice Department's Inspector General Michael Horowitz's 2018 report on the DOJ's investigation into the Clinton email server in 2016 election was considered to be a Keystone Cops investigation. So, yeah. And now that there's been glaring incompetence demonstrated, it was reported last night that this probe is going to be re-examined because there's a whole slew of apparently digital information that was never even analyzed by the FBI. That was never even analyzed by the FBI. So, yeah. This is definitely interesting. Now, you remember in the first, or in the debate between Trump and Hillary Clinton, where Trump basically said that Hillary Clinton would be in jail? Is it entirely possible that that's what's coming? That this is starting to develop and starting to demonstrate that, oh my gosh, we now have, again, Democrat malfeasance, not misfeasance. They didn't do this because, this was a mistake. We didn't realize that we were actually doing things illegally. No, folks. This is under the legal term malfeasance, meaning that there was actual intent here. And by the way, I just want to point out, as one of my wonderful Whiskey Warrior P1 says, that if anyone had bothered to read the 3 Bongino books that cover this, Spygate, Follow the Money, and Exonerated, you probably would already be well aware of everything that is being found out right now. So, yeah. This is examples of where this stuff really needs to get examined. This stuff really needs to be, and again, I know a lot of people are like, oh my gosh, this stuff happened so far and so long ago that, we should just look toward the future. No. I'm telling you right now, we do not look toward the future, because regardless of whether there is any criminal activity that comes out of any of this, okay, that actually presents itself, and whether or not there is actually any perp walks or any people going to jail, sitting behind bars, any of that stuff. No. We need these people to be held accountable. At least the information needs to be placed in the public sphere, and we need to demonstrate and show that these Democrat moron leaders, at a minimum, have not only been lying to you like Adam Schiff, have not only been pulling the wool over your eyes, but have actually done criminal actions. These people need to be held accountable in some way, shape, or form. And if this stuff is exactly what we think it is, Democrats, all Democrats, should never, ever be in power, ever again. Period. Full stop. End of story. These people are heinous. They are a criminal enterprise that has usurped our government over the course of the last 40 years, has usurped many of our institutions, including things like our education department, including things like the education, shall I dare say, indoctrination of our young people. This is the stuff that books like 1984 are built on. This is ridiculous. You want to talk about how America, I'm going to tell you right now, if the GOP and the DOJ do not end up doing a full investigation, and as a result of that full investigation, if criminal charges are found and they do not bother to charge these people, we literally are living in a society where there are 2 tiers of justice. Meaning that if you have a Democrat or a D behind your name, you're going to get away with it. That's essentially where we're going. You want to restore the American public's perceptions of the institutions. You want to restore their faith. These people must be held accountable. These people must be held accountable. And regardless of what the left may sit here and think about, regardless of what the left in their delusionary lunatic state, these leftist morons who all seem to think that Obama walks on water, but God forbid if anybody praises Donald Trump for what he's doing, which actually is America first, which actually is positive for America. These people need to get woken up with what is essentially an equivalency of a nuclear bomb of an emotional factor. That their chosen one is not so good and right and proper, that he has one of it. And again, I maintain the Obama administration and the Biden administration, which is just an extension of the Obama administration, have been the most corrupt in modern history. Period. Period. All right, folks. Well, let's see. Oh, I've got another one here. Let me go ahead and do this one. I'm going to do a quick break before I move on. I don't know about you guys, but I have to wake up every morning to coffee. I love my coffee. I have it every morning. I have it in my 16-ounce cup that was given to me by my wonderful children, talking about how I'm the best dad ever. I'm paraphrased, but that's kind of what it is. Anyway, if you still haven't tried 1775 coffee, now is your shot. The 1775 starter kit has dropped. There's a limited number of units available. Inside each unit, you'll be getting a bold dark roast that hits harder than a CNN fact check. You'll get a smooth medium roast, and you'll also be able to try the Vitality Mushroom Coffee, which gives you a clean energy and laser focus with no crash later. All of these coffees are single origin, small batch, toxin-free, and mold-free. You'll also be getting, my personal favorite, the gold spoon clip, because freedom isn't scooped with plastic. You'll also be receiving a frother that is strong enough to stir up not only your coffee, but your mother-in-law's political opinions, as well as a black 1775 tumbler that says, I don't take life advice or caffeine from a woke sea witch. It's $170 worth of coffee and gear, yours for just $99. This is for the ones who have been watching 1775 blow up on Rumble and wondering if it's actually worth it. Well, spoiler alert, it is. Go to 1775coffee.com/studio, STUDIO. And by the way, once again, that / is the question mark key on your keyboard. Go to 1775coffee.com /studio and grab your starter kit before they are gone. 1775coffee.com /studio. Grab your starter kit. Bold beans, clean fuel, and a morning routine that stands for something, just like Rumble does. Start your day with coffee that actually backs what you believe. Go to 1775coffee.com /studio and grab your starter kit today. All right. Well, speaking of the Department of Education, there is another rescission package that is coming, and it's going to codify spending cuts to none other than, let's see, where is it saying it? To a bunch of other, I guess, to a bunch of other things that were part of the Doge cuts. So the first rescissions bill, we saw some of those cuts passed last week, clawing back more than $9 billion for the American people. That dealt with something that conservatives have wanted for some time, meaning funding of things like NPR, PBS, and USAID cuts, which all three of those, by the way, are not constitutionally mandated responsibilities of the federal government in any of them. But that's just the start. The Office of Management and Budget head, Russ Vought, has signaled that there's going to be more such bills. He indicated on July 17th that another package was going to be coming soon. He wouldn't comment on what was being covered in the next package. However, there is a report that confirms that the next package is coming. And it indicates, that same report indicates that it's going to include the Department of Education cuts, as well as some other non-educated education cuts, according to the Daily Signal. White House getting ahead of myself here. White House Deputy Chief of Staff James Blair told reporters on Friday, we've got a number of items we're looking at also, obviously talking to the senators too. They are going through the appropriations process. We don't know what's important to them, but you'll obviously see that very soon. House Majority Leader Steve Scalise affirmed that talks were well underway. It's not clear yet exactly how much money is involved with this second package. Conservatives have long wanted to get rid of the Department of Education. Gee, I wonder why. Because, again, it's not part of Article 1, Section 8 as a responsibility, constitutionally mandated responsibility of the federal government, and therefore it falls to the 10th Amendment. But I digress. President Trump, of course, supported that goal with an executive order in March that authorizes the Secretary of Education, Linda McMahon, to dismantle the department. So far, they have let go 1,300 employees. It's a completely useless department that doesn't bother to educate anyone. And by the way, ever since it was created, our education quality has been dropping in comparison to the rest of the world since the 1970s when the Carter administration created it. So, yeah. Anyway, this is something that, needs to be gone, needs to be taken out, and it needs to be out of there. In fact, Chip Roy put out a post on X that said, the Department of Education has existed since 1980. The results, costs of education and salaries of career bureaucrats have gone through the roof. Meanwhile, test scores of students have plummeted. Time to cut the waste, fraud, and abuse of the Department of Education. He's not wrong there. We have actual school districts, large school districts, wealthy school districts in places like Baltimore and Chicago and so on and so forth that essentially are putting out students that can't even pass grade level examinations in the basics, reading, writing, and arithmetic. The Department of Education is a failure. It's a failed experiment that was put in by Democrats and their Democrat administration under the Democrat administration of Carter. This is totally a complete waste of money. It always has been. The states have been the ones that have taken care of education. When the Department of Education was created, we were, meaning America, was essentially in the top 10 around the world for education. People were flocking, trying to come here to get a good education, even all the way through universities. This is no longer the case. This is no longer the case. And the Constitution clearly states, again, that Article 1, Section 8 has zero mention of education at all. This was supposed to be left to the states. Basically, if you ever have a question, by the way, if you ever have a question with regards to whether or not something might be constitutional or not, the easiest way to examine it is figure out whether the topic is external or internal to America. If it is external to America, that is more than likely a federal government responsibility, because that's what the federal government was created for. The federal government was created in order to take care of and manage, be applicable to anything that has to deal with foreign connections. In terms of anything internal, it is, meaning that it is something that is directly related to the internal workings of America. That pretty much, in terms of constitutionality, falls to the states. Under the 10th Amendment, the principle of federalism. Now, the thing about it is that there are very few things that the federal government can actually get into, which is on the limitations that have to deal with interstate relationships, meaning interstate commerce. That is something that the federal government is supposed to be. But basically, what ends up happening is, as long as it has no bearing on an external force, meaning external to America, it generally is regarded as a states and people issue that the federal government does not need to be involved, period. That's your easiest way to examine whether or not something is essentially a federal issue or a federal purview. That's why things like abortion, that's not a federal issue. That is an internal issue. That is something inside the American border and has nothing to do with the federal government. If you want to talk about healthcare, healthcare is internal to the American border. It involves the people. Because of that, the federal government does not need to be involved. The only exception that that you could easily make a cognizant and cogent argument over would have to be the regular army folks that are serving our country and their medical health needs, and potentially even the veterans that have gone out. And that is essentially the easiest way that you can determine if you can't read the Constitution, which, by the way, if you pick one up, all you have to do is pick one up. It doesn't take long. It's not that long. Look at this. It's not really all that large. You could probably read it in an hour or less, depending upon the speed of your reading. It really isn't that hard to read. It isn't that hard to understand either. The Constitution itself was written for essentially lay people to be able to understand exactly what their government was allowed to do. And especially what it is not allowed to do, which is where the first 10 amendments, known as the Bill of Rights, come into play. But all of that is failed because of a failing Department of Education. Anyway, one thing that everybody in the left seems to think is that, hey, if we just raise wages, we're going to go ahead and create a economy that everybody can live off of. Really? Really? Well, for some people, California, by the way, is especially... California is sort of the petri dish for all of these leftist lunatic progressive ideas, because California will jump on any kind of leftist lunatic progressive idea and try to implement it. Well, here not too long ago, California went ahead and said, hey, hey, we're going to go ahead and we're going to pay all of our fast food workers. You know, those entry-level jobs that mostly are done by high schoolers or people who want or need second incomes, those kinds of things. Yeah, we're going to run off literally zero skills. I mean, I'm talking like you could walk in with a resume that basically says, I have been a graduate of high school, and you could probably get a job at places like McDonald's, Burger King, etc. These are entry-level jobs. Well, the Democrats seem to think that, hey, if we provide those entry-level jobs with what we consider to be, quote-unquote, livable wages, then all of a sudden, there won't be any poverty anymore. That's their shtick. That's what they think that they can do. They can accomplish by doing that. Well, there's a new report out. This in Breitbart. There's a new report out that California's $20 fast food minimum wage actually led to fewer jobs. Yeah. 18,000 fewer jobs, by the way. So there was a paper that was released by the National Bureau of Economic Research this past month. And it basically stated this: we analyzed the effect of California's $20 fast food minimum wage, which was enacted in September of 2023, went into effect in April of 2024, and on employment in the fast food sector. The unadjusted data from the quarterly census of employment and wages, we find that employment in California's fast food sector declined. For those of you that don't know, that's gone down relative to employment by 2.7% in the fast food sector alone versus elsewhere in the United States from September 2023 through September of 2024. Adjusting for pre-AB 1228 trends increases this differential decline to 3.2%. So in other words, it gets worse when they adjust stuff. So yeah, folks, this is Econ 101 here. I mean, seriously, you need to understand this is literally simple economics. What ended up happening after they had gone and put this into effect, realistically, major fast food franchisees. In this particular case, there was a Breitbart news article that reported this. In April of 2025, a major fast food franchisee said he was rushing to install automatic kiosks at his restaurants in order to save money, as the minimum wage, the $20 minimum wage, took effect. A few months later, the outlet said approximately 10,000 jobs, this is Breitbart News, 10,000 jobs were reportedly cut at California fast food restaurants following the minimum wage hike. On New Year's Day in 2025, the rise in minimum hourly wages hit nearly half of the states in the U.S. and 48 counties, according to Breitbart News. Meanwhile, the recent study has found that technology is replacing some workers. Look, I'm just going to point this out to you. Businesses are there to turn a profit. And unlike the Democrats, they are not price gouging. They can't place themselves out of the marketplace because otherwise people are going to walk away from their products and services. So what do? They have to, in order to manipulate their profit margins, they have to do things like cut costs. Well, one of the things that happens when you want to cut costs, and by the way, key factor here, little bit of inside baseball, the most liquid asset that a organization has, in other words, the one thing that they can liquidate or get rid of quickly and show some sort of a profit afterward, well, that's their people. If you watch any business when it's trying to make itself look a lot more appealing to people to buy it, the first thing that they do is they start laying off workers. They get rid of people because that is the quickest way for them to change their bottom line in terms of the money. And what ends up happening, by the way, is the fact that companies will then start looking toward other ways in order to increase their bottom line. Again, this is exactly what happens in business, but most Democrats don't understand economics because the vast majority of them either didn't work, or the other flip side of it is they sat in those socialist, Marxist, Democrat, communist, whatever classes in universities and are like talking about, the worker is, you got to join a union, and the worker is the the slave of the billionaires and all of the other things that they run around on the internet, which most of it is a bunch of bunk, but hey. Anyway, the point being is that Democrats don't seem to understand how capitalism works, and because of that, they will constantly be wrong about anything that deals with economics, no matter what. This just demonstrates it. All right, folks, that is it for me for this evening. Wow, that hour and a half went by quick. Anyway, do me a favor. If you haven't already, head on over to rumble.com. Get yourself an account. It is free. And once you are signed up and signed in, make sure you search up the American Perspective channel and hit that green follow button to get notified every time that I go live. Also, too, don't forget to hit those thumbs up, or if you're really interested, thumbs down. Across all of my platforms, whether it's YouTube, X, Facebook, and, of course, the aforementioned Rumble. We will see you tomorrow night, 5 p.m. Pacific, 8 p.m. Eastern Time, right here on American Perspective. Have a great rest of your evening, and good night, everybody.